Bitcoin has value because it's useful and it's scarce.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in to crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and we're going to have a discussion today about the future of Bitcoin. Is it going to be Bitcoin Core or Bitcoin Unlimited? We're going to see Segwit, a proponent of Bitcoin Unlimited, on the line with me today. An early Bitcoin adopter, an investor, a Bitcoin magnate is Roger Ver. He's been involved with Bitcoin.com, blockchain.info, localbitcoins.com, Kraken, Bitcoin Charts, Bitstamp, BitPay. You know what? He's in it across the board, and I can't think of a better person to talk to about Bitcoin and get an update. Roger, thanks for coming on the line with me today.
A pleasure to be on with you. Thank you.
Roger, it would appear that Bitcoin's weakness as of lately, with the concern in the community regarding the block size increase, the block size debate, has been a benefit to some of these other alternative currencies such as Litecoin and Dash and Ethereum. And I just want to get your thoughts with the concern regarding Bitcoin's future.
I share a lot of those concerns, and you're exactly right. Bitcoin has doubled in about the last 6 months, but a lot of these altcoins have gone up, 5, 10, maybe even 20 times for some of them in that same time period. And the reason why is because Bitcoin has value because it's useful and it's scarce, right? So there's a limited supply of Bitcoin, and it's useful. As more and more people start to use Bitcoin, the price in terms of dollars will go up. But that usefulness of Bitcoin is being intentionally undermined by this Bitcoin core dev team, and they're intentionally undermining it because they say that they think high fees and slow transactions are a good thing. And the way they're undermining it is by limiting the amount of block space that's allowed to be produced by the miners. So I was the first person in the entire world to get involved in investing in Bitcoin startups. At that time, the average block size was about 5 kilobytes, right? So that's 0.005 megabytes. And then as more and more people started to use Bitcoin, those blocks grew to 10 kilobytes, and then 100 kilobytes or 0.1 megabytes, and then, to half a megabyte, and then 3/4 of a megabyte. And then about 6 months ago, they actually got up to 1 megabyte. And there was what was imposed previously as a temporary anti-spam limit, was imposed a while back at 1 megabyte with the full intention at the time of removing it if Bitcoin ever got anywhere close to having so many people using it, the blocks became 1 megabyte. But instead, a bunch of people came to Bitcoin much later. One of the most prominent ones is Adam Back, the CEO of Blockstream, a company that raised, I believe, $76 million from traditional finance companies, who I should add had a personal invitation from the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. He had a personal invitation from day one to get involved in Bitcoin, but instead of getting involved in Bitcoin, he blew him off and dismissed him and didn't get involved in Bitcoin in any way until Bitcoin was about $1,000 for the first time. So that shows just how little of an appreciation this person had for why Bitcoin was going to be popular and why Bitcoin was going to be useful and why people were going to start using it all over the world. Whereas myself, when I heard about Bitcoin and many, many others, it was less than $1, and I got incredibly excited about it, and just devoted my last 6 years of my life to doing nothing but promoting the usage of Bitcoin and making Bitcoin easier for people to use all over the world. But now these people are openly saying that they think high fees and full blocks and long confirmation delays are a good thing for Bitcoin. But as anybody knows, if you have an option of two similar products, and one is fast and cheap and easy to use, and the other is slow and expensive and inconvenient to use, everyone's going to start using the ones that are fast and cheap and easy to use. And that's what we're starting to see happen with the total market cap of crypto coins in general skyrocketing. But the majority of that is going into crypto coins other than Bitcoin at this point, because the Bitcoin blocks are completely full. And that's undermining Bitcoin's usefulness in commerce, which is a really, really sad thing to say for myself as the owner of Bitcoin.com and the largest single shareholder in blockchain.com. This is really, really, really frustrating for me to see. And so that's why I'm doing everything I can to fix this problem.
Roger, I want to get into what it would mean if Bitcoin hard forks here. But is it fair to say that those who are don't want it to hard fork, or the newcomers online are okay with higher transaction fees and, you know, long transaction waiting times? Or is it that they do want some solutions? I mean, one of those being segregated witness. So
to most normal people that understand why something is useful, it sounds crazy to say that somebody would want the fees to be high, or want the confirmations to be slow, or want any of these things to happen. But that's how crazy these people are that are part of Bitcoin Core. They openly say, and I put together a whole slide deck in their own words, quoting them, not taken out of context, where they openly call for high fees. I had a big debate with another Core supporter named Tone Bays recently, who said he thinks it's a good thing if it costs $100 for each and every Bitcoin transaction. Those are his words, not mine. Whereas any normal person, if you have an option of paying $100 to send money to someone, or paying a penny to send money to someone, and you get about the same usefulness or even more usefulness out of the cheaper version, you're going to use the cheaper version and not the expensive version. And that's what we're starting to see happen with all these altcoins getting more and more market cap and more usage and more trade volume.
Sure. And I know Tone, and I'm not going to defend him or debate you on this. I'm not qualified to do that. But I guess the only thing that, I think he is concerned about, and I think it's logical, is that if we do see two coins come online here, I mean, what's that going to do to the confidence that people have in digital currencies? And with a lot of people on the sidelines, especially like your baby boomers who are still reading the newspaper, I mean, what is it going to do to morale if we have two Bitcoins? And it just, I don't know, I think it would be a big blow to everyone who is hoping this is going to work out for the long term.
So I disagree with that pretty strongly. I don't think it'll be damaging to anything. If there is, so a hard fork is just a scarier sounding name for a protocol upgrade or a software upgrade, right? So that if you call it a protocol upgrade, that doesn't sound nearly as scary. You're upgrading something, and Bitcoin has had lots of hard fork protocol upgrades already, and all these other altcoins, lots of them have scheduled hard forks. Protocol upgrades every couple of months, and they almost always go very smoothly. Ethereum split into two chains a while ago. That didn't cause any problems for it. The market cap is much higher than today than it ever has been for Ethereum. The market cap immediately following the split was much higher as well, and nobody's confusing Ethereum with Ethereum Classic. People realize that they're two different things, and if Bitcoin were to split in the same way, which I think is very unlikely, because of the way Bitcoin is designed, which is different than Ethereum. But somehow if that were to happen, I don't think there would be any confusion there, because both of those aren't going to be called Bitcoin either. The one that has the majority of the users and the majority of the hash rate and the majority of everything is going to be called Bitcoin. And the other chain split will be called something else. So there won't be any confusion. If anything, it'll help morale, because people on both sides of this argument will get the Bitcoin that's exactly what they want. One will be called something other than Bitcoin, but everybody gets exactly what they want out of this. So I think it would be a fantastic thing, actually, if my first choice is Bitcoin upgrades the protocol and everyone goes in the same direction and this scaling problem is solved forever in regards to the block size. The second option is that's not that much worse and almost as good, is that if Bitcoin splits into two different versions of Bitcoin, and one's called Bitcoin and one is called something else, then everybody gets what they want. All the fighting stops. Everyone can go on with their lives, and all the arguing on the internet comes to an end. So that's a pretty good outcome as well. I'm tired of arguing.
Okay. Well, that is interesting. And just to be clear, so if this hard fork does happen and we have two Bitcoins, for someone who has 10 Bitcoins, traditional Bitcoins, what happens?
Yeah, you would have 10 of each of the new versions of Bitcoin. So you'd have 10 of the Bitcoin, and then you'd have 10 of, Bitcoin Core, whatever the minority fork is. So then you can decide for yourself if you think Bitcoins that you can move easily and quickly and cheaply to anyone anywhere in the world are more useful than Bitcoins that take forever to move and are very expensive to move. You could sell your slow and expensive Bitcoins and use the proceeds from that to buy more of the fast and cheap and easy Bitcoins. And that's what I would do, and lots of other people would do, because everybody likes things that are easy to use and cost less rather than things that are hard to use and cost more.
So in the trajectory Bitcoin is going right now, no solution, let's say, what are the potential risks? Is Bitcoin going back to 500 and below, or are we? Does it remain resilient? Because at this point, it seems like it's remaining resilient, falling back under 1,000, now back over 1,200. What happens?
Bitcoin is still experimental and new, and potentially could go all the way to zero if something really catastrophic happened. I think that's pretty unlikely at this point. Bitcoin's been around for over 8 years, but it's still something new. It's still something experimental. So don't put all your eggs in one basket, and don't put in more of it than you can afford to lose. But I think we're actually pretty close to a solution. I think anybody who actually uses Bitcoin and uses it in their daily lives to send or receive money or pay for things realizes that there's a giant problem on the network, and that this Bitcoin core team, many of which have openly stated that they're in favor of the censorship that's going on, many of which have openly said that they support the high fees, they support the full blocks that cause the long confirmation delays, they openly say that they support making it easy to double spend Bitcoin transactions. All of these things are kryptonite to the usefulness of Bitcoin. And more people are starting to realize that. And that's why more and more people are starting to support development teams other than Bitcoin Core. And that's why more and more mining power is mining on something other than Bitcoin Core. So Bitcoin Core's, the current version of Core's, has something called SegWit in it. That's basically the minority hash rate of Bitcoin. Bitcoin Unlimited has more hash rate than any other version of Bitcoin. Bitcoin Unlimited has nearly 40% of the global hash rate, whereas Segregated Witness version of Core has around 27% or 30%. And then the old version of Bitcoin Core has around 30% as well. So it's 40% for the bigger blocks, on-chain scaling, in the original vision of Satoshi Nakamoto, exactly how he outlined it when he created Bitcoin. A word-for-word quote from him was that the ultimate solution is to just let the blocks get as big as they need to be. So anyhow, that has the dominant amount of hash rate at the moment and growing quickly, whereas the Blockstream SegWit version of Bitcoin Core has around 30%, and then the old version of Bitcoin Core that a lot of miners seem to have refused to upgrade from simply because they don't support Bitcoin Core or Bitcoin Unlimited at this point, is also 30%. So technically, Bitcoin Unlimited needs to have somewhere north of 50% of the hash rate. We'd like to see it have 60, 70, 80%, and I think if it gets to 80% or even 65%, I think it'll get to 100% pretty quickly. And I think there's a real good chance we'll see that here in the coming weeks or next few months.
Are you involved with it making that happen in any way, or what are steps being taken to get that sort of consensus?
Yeah, I'm helping get the word out as best I can. I've donated money to the Bitcoin Unlimited dev team. I run Bitcoin Unlimited nodes myself. I run a mining pool at pool.bitcoin.com that's running Bitcoin Unlimited nodes for that. So we're mining Bitcoin Unlimited blocks using that. We have lots and lots of supporters all over the world, because it's been a real interesting eye-opener for me. When this debate started recently, I've been having more and more discussions with people. I find that the majority of the people on the Bitcoin Core side of not allowing the blocks to get bigger, they don't actually use Bitcoin. They don't use it for payments. They don't receive payments from other people. They use it very, very infrequently. Whereas myself, I use Bitcoin more times each and every day than I can count. And I find the majority of people that support Bitcoin Unlimited are frequent Bitcoin users, which I think says a lot right there.
Roger, I'd like to ask you, because I believe I heard you say this, that Bitcoin right now is less secure, and the potential to double spend is there. And that's I had to scratch my head when I heard that, because as someone who doesn't understand or have a deep understanding of the technology and kind of lean on those who understand it, and most people have said, hey, it's secure, that you can't double spend, and I kind of took people at their word at that. Why is it? Where's the possibility for less security in the network and the potential to double spend?
So there's two answers there. One is really, really easy to understand. One's a little bit more complex. But here's the super easy to understand version first. So when you make a Bitcoin transaction, that Bitcoin transaction is waiting to be included in a block. And once it's included in a block, it's written into this Bitcoin ledger that's called the blockchain. And those blocks are created every 10 minutes. And for the entire history of Bitcoin up until about 6 months ago, pretty much every single transaction was always included in the very next block. So that meant the average amount of time that you would have to wait for a Bitcoin transaction to be confirmed in the Bitcoin network was about 10 minutes. Today, all of those blocks are full. So instead of your transaction being included in that next block in about 10 minutes, oftentimes you have to wait hours or even days for your transaction to be included in a block. And right now, while your transaction is waiting to be included in the block, it's possible for it to be double spent, where people can make a conflicting transaction that sends the Bitcoin somewhere else. So the time window that you were able to double spend a Bitcoin transaction went from about 10 minutes to hours or even days at this point. And that was by intentional design of the Bitcoin for people. And then they've done something that's even worse than that, is the rule for Bitcoin transactions, which ones were going to be confirmed in the blocks, used to be something called first seen, first safe, which is just a fancy way of saying that the first Bitcoin transaction you see on a network with money coming from one address into another is the one that the miners were supposed to include in the next block. So that meant if you saw a transaction on the network, you knew pretty much for sure it was going to be included in a block in the same manner that you saw the transaction first. But later they've switched it to something called replace by fee, in which now you can broadcast a transaction to the network, and then at any point before it's included in a block, people can change it. And the miners just choose whichever one has the higher fee attached to it, which means your transaction is nowhere near as safe as it used to be until it's actually included in a block. So they've made the time window in which Bitcoin transactions can be double spent much, much longer. And they've made the ease of double spending those transactions much, much easier. So both those things undermine the safety of accepting a Bitcoin transaction instantly.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And this is, I guess, why this is such a hot topic at the moment. Roger, then, what are some of your favorite alternative currencies to Bitcoin? And is your heart still in Bitcoin and its future, or are you looking elsewhere?
So absolutely, my heart is still in Bitcoin. I'm the CEO of Bitcoin.com. I'm working on Bitcoin things every single day. I see some of these core supporters accuse me of having sold all my Bitcoins and bought a bunch of altcoins. That's not true at all. About 7 months ago, I was really, really, really concerned about the scaling debate. So I sold about 1% of my Bitcoins to buy altcoins. So, 1%, that's almost nothing. And then unfortunately, for Bitcoin, in the meantime, Bitcoin doubled, but these altcoins went up, 5 or 10 times. So that 1% became a little bit more, but I still have, high 90% of my crypto coin holdings are all in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin.com has become a very successful business and website in its own right that has quite a bit of value that I'm working on every single day. So another interesting note recently too, actually, I'll save that story for another time. But I still own a lot of Bitcoins. My heart is completely in Bitcoin. I'm working on Bitcoin every day. If you had emailed me asking to do an interview on altcoins, I probably would have said no. But you asked to do an interview on Bitcoin, so here I am, bright and early on a Tokyo morning to do it.
Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and it was a great update. Is there any final closing thoughts that you have here that you wanted to share with everyone before we say goodbye?
A couple of points I'll touch on. If you think that a Bitcoin in which transactions are very difficult to double spend, are basically confirmed good enough right away, and they're very cheap and easy to use, and your transactions get confirmed, if that's the version of Bitcoin that you think is most useful to you, then support Bitcoin Unlimited. And if you're opposed to censorship, that's one of I think the stronger arguments actually about Bitcoin Core. Lots of these people are openly saying that they support the online censorship, and many of them refuse to condemn it. A couple of them say that they wish that wasn't going on, but they should be shouting from the rooftops. If Bitcoin is supposed to be censorship-resistant money in which anyone in the world can use, we should be incredibly opposed to the online censorship. So I don't trust people that don't support free speech online to maintain Bitcoin as a free and open payment network that people can use. So if you want to learn more, visit Bitcoin.com. We have all sorts of amazing tools to help new people get started with Bitcoin there, and we have all the latest news every day at news.bitcoin.com as well.
All right. Roger Ver, thanks for your time. I appreciate the insight. Thanks for coming on the line with me.
Thank you so much for having me.